We also know with generative AI that there's a lot going on in terms of making social engineering attacks seem much more legitimate.
Right.
So it requires organizations to be a lot more vigilant, I would say, in terms of how they educate their staff. In terms of, we always look at kind of industry leaders, leading organizations. What are they? What have you heard about what they're doing in terms of safeguarding, their infrastructure, their employees, pretty much their patients, just data in general when it comes to social engineering attacks?
Yeah, so from a technical perspective, there's a lot of email filtering tools that can detect phishing and prevent it from reaching the victim's inbox in the first place. Though they are not completely foolproof, but using a secure email gateway can definitely help mitigate that risk. And then also encouraging employees to report suspected phishing emails is always good practice. A lot of organizations, as part of their employee security training, will send out simulated phishing emails that will set off a notification to the security team if an employee falls for it, and then they will get a communication about how to prevent that in the future.
Obviously you cover a lot of HIPAA, and HIPAA has administrative, technical safeguards and physical safeguards to protect information. But we all know that really it comes down to education, considering that we're focused on kind of human behavior and how vulnerable that is for an organization. What have you heard in terms of what goes into good education? Obviously, you talked about training and simulation, but I guess how do you get employees to take this seriously and understand the stakes?
So, as you said, education is really the biggest piece there. Regardless of where you are in the organization, every employee needs to go through security training, and HIPAA does require that to some extent. So, what I've heard from organizations that I've spoken with is if they have resources available, they might even craft targeted training content for different roles and responsibilities across the organization. So, there might be training specific to new hires or for executives or doctors and nurses. If there's, an employee that works in the financial office, processing important financial information, they're going to want to know how to prevent phishing from that angle as well. So it's important to have kind of targeted training for different groups within the organization.
All right, let's talk about passwords, because passwords are really sexy and exciting. Cryptography and everything like that just makes everyone's world a better place, especially when you can't remember your password. So obviously passwords are a weak link in many organizations. What are some of the password management best practices healthcare organizations can implement to strengthen security? Obviously, we know about multi-factor authentication, but what else? What else are organizations doing?
Multi-factor authentication is definitely a great first line of defense. A lot of organizations also will require you to change your password every 90 days so that, if that password was impacted by a breach somewhere else and you're reusing it, which is also not a great practice, but that's a good way to mitigate that risk from there. Some other best practices for choosing a password is using, complex characters, numbers, and as I said, changing it often and never reusing it.
It becomes really tough though when you run out of your favorite animals, your children, your birthday.
Definitely.
But that special character definitely pulls its weight. In terms of leadership, we talk a lot in healthcare about culture just for any type of change management. But as it pertains to cybersecurity, how important is leadership in terms of getting employees and staff to understand the seriousness of it for the internal among the internal staff, but then obviously reputation. Healthcare organizations serve communities; they're integral parts of communities. So, what are some of the ways that leadership are kind of leading the way when it comes to adopting and fostering, that cybersecurity culture?
Yeah, I think, leading by example, everyone in the organization should be essentially part of the security team, whether you're an executive or, a doctor or a nurse, you're taking that training seriously. And really, the trick for security teams that can be challenging is making that training engaging and not just, having someone kind of click through just to get to the end. So recognizing that some people are more visual learners and they might implement videos or interactive games to keep people engaged or invested, and just really emphasizing that every employee is a member of the security team and needs to be part of that effort. A lot of organizations will also track the effectiveness of their training strategies. So they might look at email open rates from the security team, and then if those are low, they'll try a different tactic. One larger organization I've spoken with, the security team will actually reward people for reporting fake phishing emails by giving digital coins that they can cash in for merchandise, which is not feasible for a lot of smaller organizations, but any way that you can keep security on someone's mind is a win.